Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Kevin.
Or what is happening?
Who am I?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
No.
So I could barely see in these glasses.
Okay, if anybody that's listening, Kevin has on the most ridiculous glasses right now. And he looks like Amelia Earhart, but I feel like it's
so
not.
I see in like a kaleidoscope of things here. But some things are in focus, some things aren't. I'm not really sure what my depth perception. I can't see. Do you have any idea? You don't have any idea who I am?
No.
I am all on track officials this weekend. Because sometimes things seem just as they should be.
Okay.
And other times, I really have no fucking clue what I'm doing right now.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it
I'm
makes
take
sense
these off
now.
because they're gonna make me nauseous.
Yeah. Yes. If you're just listening on Spotify or whatever, you need to go on to YouTube and just watch the first little bit of this.
Yeah, we'll put it up on.
I'll take
on
a screen grab of
that. But this was. I want to say it was one of the most interesting and ulcer-inducing and anger-inducing races of the year. Yeah. Probably in the last several years.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can go back. I think you can go back to like Abu Dhabi 2021. And this is the second, like just underneath that. The
most frustrating. And it wasn't even just today. It was the entire weekend.
The entire weekend.
Disaster.
After FIA president Ben, who we love so much, came out and said basically, I was a driver, but we do what's right for the FIA, and the drivers can just stick to driving and not have an opinion. Yeah. So they have their job, the drivers have their job. The FIA completely took over this race. The stewards, the race director, didn't take over this race. They influenced this race in such a way that like it had nothing to do with the drivers anymore.
No.
At this point.
No. And I mean, I text you this. I was like, the drivers can't do anything right today. Everything that's happening is out of control, like out of the control of the drivers.
And either there was things where the FIA just decided, I'm not going to take any action for whatever fucking reason, or we're going to give out so much action that it's going to impact everybody's race.
Everybody.
And we decide what happens in this race.
Everybody's race was screwed up at some point or another by FIA stewards, race director, all weekend.
P1 to P20.
Yeah, everybody was screwed over. Ridiculous. But we will get into that. The race.
Yeah, I'm fired up. Already.
Yeah, it was like we are 3 minutes into this. But
and those glasses still hurt my eyes.
Yeah, this was the Qatar Grand Prix. It was a sprint weekend, so we had two races. We had the sprint, the last sprint, the penultimate race of the season, so second last race, penultimate. And it was an interesting weekend. I want to start with one quick thing about this weekend is last year in Qatar, it was blistering hot. The drivers were pretty much passing out in their cars. Logan Sargent last year was saying he was so sick, but he's going to try and finish the race for the team. Opposite this year.
They had all their ice packs on last year.
They were, bad. Drivers could barely get out of the car. This year, cold.
They brought the cold weather, like the cold desert weather.
Yeah. Drivers in sweaters, windy, sand all over the track.
But I think that's what people forget about a desert. Like, I know Qatar is usually warm, especially this is a night race, but the desert cools off quite a bit.
Yeah.
In when it's nighttime.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, Qatar is usually, maybe cooling off for them is 20 degrees,
Still
18 degrees.
makes a
Right?
difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. Makes a difference on your graining, how your engine fares.
Yeah.
All of it, how all your tire wear in general. But yeah, I mean, it's still a grueling track.
Yeah.
It's still high speed corners. There's not really a lot of low speed corners. It's mostly high speed corners.
Yeah.
It's a weird looking track, but it promotes speed.
And the track looks a lot bigger than it is. Like when you look at like the aerial, like, and how it like zigzags and what have you, like it looks a lot bigger, but
it's still only 57 laps.
Yeah.
It's a fairly, I forget how long it actually was.
Yeah.
Close to 7 kilometers, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, lots to discuss this weekend. We are going to jump right into sprint or FP1. Nothing of note really in FP1. Again, it's a sprint weekend, so there was only one practice. Then we jump into sprint quali on Friday. And we're going to mess Kevin up right now with all the SQ1s and Q3s.
Yeah,
and
please do. Yeah,
we're going to mess them all up.
I've got to finish the season the way I started. So.
Yeah. So SQ1, so the sprint quali one, nothing out of the norm other than... It's kind of the norm now.
It is the norm. It is. He did 4 straight. You might as well keep going.
Sergio Perez out in Q1 in 16th. And then a bit of out of the norm.
That was the one where he was kind of wheel to wheel with Charles.
Yeah.
And so like they were both on a hot lap and came together, which you never really see on a hot lap.
No.
Usually, or one abandons it.
It shouldn't.
They didn't want to abandon it.
No.
It's just Sergio says it screwed up his quality.
Didn't do too bad for Charles.
No.
He was pretty high up at the end of SQ1. So, and then the only other one that's, I guess, kind of out of the norm was we had Yuki Tsunoda in 17th. I say it's kind of out of the norm because he has been getting into Q2s, Q3s.
Well, you say it because we were both talking about how we wanted. Lawson's been such a villain.
Yes.
Over the last couple weeks, and I think he's got a thing for
Alonso,
Spanish-speaking people.
Yeah.
Because he made comments about Alonso again this week, assuming Alonso was in the Aston Martin when it was Stroll. I'm like, look at the number.
Yeah.
They're very different.
Yeah. Every driver knows when they come together. Even if they don't come together, they know who just like almost took them out. Like,
and if you honestly don't know the number, don't call it a name. Just like, who was that? Just ask yourself.
Which of the Saubers was that? Which of the Astons was that?
Exactly. But we were pulling for Yuki, but it didn't work out in the sprint.
No, not in the sprint quali. SQ2. We have kind of would be the usual suspects. Alonso in 11th, Albon, Bottas, Stroll, and Magnussen.
Which Bottas has been up there.
Yeah.
And just to put it out there, like other than Zhao's qualifying, Sauber's had a decent weekend. Mm-hmm. Their best weekend.
Yeah.
But even whether both drivers got points or not, they both had a fair showing throughout the weekend.
And you could kind of start to see the change even last weekend. Okay, they didn't have great qualifyings, but their individual timings on track, like even in their free practice, the timings look good. And Jensen, who was commentating this weekend, he actually made the comment about someone's quali time versus their race time. He was talking about the Haas's. The speed can be different in either one. So... they've kind of been looking good at the end of the season.
Exactly. It's a shame. We're looking at two drivers who don't have a drive next year.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not driving next year at all.
No.
Maybe Zhao's going to be a test driver. That's the rumor.
Yeah.
Maybe they have an option to go to a team when we move to, we'll talk about it in the news, but when they move to one of the 11 teams instead of 10 in 2026. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of a shame that now they're starting to come into form for reasons that's really not of their choosing. I know maybe they haven't been the greatest of drivers, but the car's improving.
Yeah.
But it's improving way too late.
Way too late.
Way
They figured
too
it
late.
out.
Yeah.
So they'll be ready for 2025.
Great.
But
With neither of those drivers.
Yeah,
So Hulkenberg's going to have a great time.
yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Maybe
much. So again, kind of in those first two stints of SQ1 and SQ2, we saw a lot of lap times being deleted across the board. This was Oscar, Alonso, Lewis, like everybody, even people that made it into SQ3, they were having lap times deleted. Again, the track is full. People need to move out of the way. There's all kinds of stuff going on. When we get into SQ3, no real track time or lap times being deleted for track limits. But we kind of end off with the norm.
I think we had a Lewis track time deleted.
Yeah. But I think was it in
and
Q3
that's why,
though?
I think it was, and that's why I ended up in 7th. Because he was trying to improve.
Fair. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. He had oversteering, I think, and he went wide. And then we end up with a qualifying grid of Lando in P1, George, P2, Oscar. I did 3 more just to kind of highlight where we see Verstappen sitting, which we now know he is the champion, but still important to where he ends up. So behind Oscar, we have Carlos, Charles, and then Verstappen in 6th. Lewis in 7th. So interesting grid. We have George splitting those McLarens, which the McLarens have been fast, but the Mercedes have been getting faster.
Specifically George.
One Mercedes is getting faster.
George. Well, and it's like I was thinking about it this weekend, and I was thinking about it during the sprint. I was thinking about it after, during the interviews and stuff. It really seems, and regardless of what was said after the sprint race, we seem to see drivers really, if you have nothing of consequence, you don't really care about the sprints. I mean, we didn't see really Max really giving a shit about the sprints. No. Lewis was not one who cared. We see, Gasly got into the top 10. Hulkenberg, Lawson got into top 10. Lawson wants to prove what he wants or what he has. Alpine's fighting for points for an extra $13 million.
Yeah.
Hulkenberg, I'd say they're in that same fight. The McLarens are in a fight for a championship, so they're trying to maximize their points. But it doesn't seem like the drivers are really into it. I love a sprint.
No,
they're fun.
I like the sprint.
They're quick. They can have some drama. There's not a lot of time for that drama.
Yeah.
But they can have some drama. So usually you're going to get something at the end or at the beginning. Mm-hmm. It's only usually over we're looking at 19 to 23 laps, somewhere between them. Yeah. Between all of those. But a lot of the drivers just don't care. So you see drivers like Max and Lewis who just aren't putting that effort in.
No, and they're not going to risk the car. I mean, Max will push really hard if he's in a sprint qualifying that he's P1. He's going to push, get the gap, and then, that's when he's going to do it. But he's not going to do it when he's in 6th. Like, he's
I think it's more of like an ego
but
thing.
Like, he's not
going
to just let everybody pass him. But he's not going to go full out. Lewis is not going to go, what's the point in causing damage to the car? They're using it as an extra practice, really, is what they're doing. So we kind of get to the sprint, and Lando, who is in first, has an incredible start. They all have a good,
the top 3 really.
Start. Yeah. And very quickly, Piastri is able to jump Russell, and they've got their P1 and P2.
The only one who didn't get a good start was Max. He dropped 3 places immediately by turn 1.
Yeah.
Just out of turn 1.
Yeah.
He was in 9th.
Yeah. And it was a situation where he kind of just got bullied and pinned in. What
he kind of just
what he usually does.
Abort damage. Yeah.
And everybody just he's like, I'm not gonna get involved in any.
You guys go ahead. I've won the championship already. Matters nothing to me.
Yeah. And getting down the pit straight here, we have a bizarre situation in the pit lane where we have Sergio Perez starting in what's 19th in the pit lane, and we have Franco Colapinto, who's starting 20th in the pit lane.
Yeah.
They're both supposed to go once the lights go off.
That alert turns green. Yeah, there's a little square light that's there.
Yep. And Perez stalls?
No.
I don't know.
That was the question. He sits there for a good 2 seconds. The commentators are giving him the benefit of the doubt that he had a clutch issue.
Yeah.
I mean, Colapinto said you can tell he wasn't really looking.
Yeah.
And so he just went over. And so we're waiting by the end of the race, like, what happened? Is there an explanation? And we got that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
From, I'm guessing they're obviously looking at all the data. Is anything wrong? What was the radio message? I just don't think he was expecting it. I just don't think he was paying attention.
No.
And he got overtaken at the pit start.
By a Williams.
Because he just wasn't paying attention.
In the pit lane.
When you can't qualify out of Q1 for 5 weeks in a row now, 5 races, because it's including the sprint races, but for 5 races in a row, you are technically fighting for your seat, even though he says his seat is secure. He knows what's going on for next year. Obviously, he's got a contract, but we know the contracts mean absolutely nothing. You can't afford, and you were technically still in the running for Constructors Championship, which, spoiler alert, they've now been officially mathematically eliminated from World Constructors Championship contention.
Based on today's results.
This weekend's results, yeah. You can't make those absolutely asinine mistakes. No. I'm pretty comfortable in calling it that. Yeah. Because the light's green, you go. It's exactly what Horner said.
I mean, that's like driving 101. Like, that's not even like racing specific.
That is driving all over the world.
Yeah.
101. Green light means go.
Yeah, green means go. So yeah, just not a good look. And I think everybody was kind of like shaking their heads, like, what do you mean? What do you mean he got overtaken in the pit lane? Just again, not a good start for him. And he doesn't totally recover from it at all. Like, he just is nowhere.
Not at all.
He's nowhere to be found during the race. But
he finished 20th.
Yeah. Well, he did pit. Remember, he did pit for a new front wing because he was doing so horribly.
Red Bull, they were testing.
Red Bull kind of brought him in for testing, and they switched the front wing, which you don't unless there's usually damage or you're using it for testing.
But if you are a top 4 car, and we saw it today with, and we'll get into what Lando did in the race. If you're a top 4 car, you've got 19. You start in 20th because you got overtaken in the pit lane. You've got 19 laps. You should at least be sniffing points. You should be able to make your way through the pack.
At least.
You should.
You should be passing the RBs. You should be passing the Haas. You should be.
He changed for new wing
late.
I want to say, was it late?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the thought is, you're not doing anything for us. We're going to treat you as a test driver, as our reserve driver.
Our reserve driver.
The writing is on the wall now.
Yeah. It really is. And I mean, we can talk about Perez, and we'll talk about him more during the race. But
over the next 2 weeks, we're going to.
Yeah, honestly. But one thing on the other end of the grid was George. George had insane speed the whole race, the whole sprint, but he just couldn't get past Oscar. He could not.
Yeah.
He was doing these long lunges with DRS, but Oscar made his car wide.
I forget. Did he get overtaken into lap 1 in turn 1?
George?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
It was a start from.
Yeah. And so he's now running in third, and just he can't get by.
On his ass.
Yeah, he just for some reason.
To the credit of the McLarens, it was full on teamwork this weekend in the sprints.
It was
because Lando had the pace. Lando had clear air. Lando could have probably built over the 19 laps. Probably could have built himself, I'm gonna guess, at a 12-second gap. Or probably pretty close to that, at least 10. But he was asked to keep giving Piastri DRS, which there's only one DRS zone in Qatar, which is the main straight, and keep giving him DRS and to stay within that 1 second so that he could allow himself to keep ahead of Russell.
Yeah. And just kind of...
Russell had some comments that I'm very bothered by.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole section we got to do about George this weekend because George was on one this weekend.
George.
Yeah. So, which, before we get to George, I want to say Charles and Lewis had probably 2 laps of incredible
exchanges
racing.
Yeah.
Like it was...
Yeah.
It's I mean, they're going to be teammates. I think it was a little bit of fun for the two of them, but they were so close. I think they touched. They had to because they touched.
And it was the talk all weekend that the only place you can really pass is that one DRS zone where you're going to get it. But when we talk about Lewis and George, there was at first Charles trying to get ahead of Lewis. Yeah. And turns 1, 2, 3, 4, they're right on each other, and they're the same going out throughout that whole. I think it's probably about 2 or 3. Turn 2 or 3 of after 2 or 3 laps of fighting that Charles actually gets him. Yeah, and it was intense.
Yeah, like I was seeing that the race was going to be finished behind a safety car because the two of them were going to go off. Like it was. Yeah. It was really
hard
good.
But fair.
Yeah. They kept it relatively clean. Like
they had to have touched. I'm sure unless somebody moved quickly and it looked like he just got bumped, it looked like they touched wheel to wheel.
Yeah. I don't know how they kept it on track, but Lando was saying he was losing grip because he was doing all this helping. Of staying within DRS. And so he keeps asking the radio, like, I'm losing grip. Do I sacrifice myself or, keep helping? And they asked him, keep with him, keep doing this DRS. We're going to try and, keep this 1-2. And George is close, but then ever so often, I guess he was charging his battery. George would back off. A little bit, and then it would give a little bit of free air, and then Oscar would pick up the pace. But George on his radio during the sprint was just F-bombing. Any swear word you could come up with, I think he was throwing them all out.
Happy Georgie, yeah.
He was not happy at all this weekend. He is consistently on Oscar, like trying to get past him. Can't do it at all. And I think he's just overall frustrated. Like, just
overall. And we kind of get to like probably about the 3/4 mark, I would say, where Lando actually gets ahead out of DRS range. He's probably about like a 1.5 seconds. Yeah. And for some reason, he gets close. He makes a move. He's trying to late brake. It's not really working. He's still not getting that much closer.
No.
But it's just whatever he tries, it's not working. And then, Lando continues the DRS train. And it just frustrates them even more.
Yeah. And then we get to final lap. Lando in first, Oscar in second, George still on Oscar's ass in third.
I haven't seen this because I'm taking my children to hockey because I have to be a responsible father, which sucks. And you're telling me wait till the last lap. I watched this thing waiting for the crash. I was waiting for the smoke. I was waiting for everything. You positioned this in the worst way possible
because I just said, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, wait for it. And they all three, because again, they are very close. All three are coming around the corner and Lando moves over and essentially slams his brakes.
Yeah, Lando for all intents and purposes. Last corner and as if we were going to brake test somebody, but nobody's behind him because he's built enough of a gap. Yeah,
just moves over. Oscar goes through. Lando cuts back over to essentially cover off George, and it becomes a McLaren 1-2, which we were expecting, but now it's Oscar 1. Lando 2.
He gives Oscar that race win as a thank you for Brazil. to say, hey, thanks for giving it to me. I'll give it back to you.
Yeah.
Which is inconsequential to Lando now, so it doesn't matter. So who cares?
Yeah.
But it's a risky move. If you come
Super
out of
risky.
that stop and you F up your shift change or whatever it is, or you slam on the gas too quickly, you fishtail, whatever it's going to be. George is coming with speed. He's going to pass you. And it wasn't far off. They were a tenth, 2/10 of a second apart.
Yeah.
Crossing that line.
I mean, can you imagine he came back over and took out George? Like, that would have been like the headline of the weekend. But it was the most bizarre thing. And, everybody was like, oh, it's the team thing to do. And I mean, we posted it.
We all thought
they're
it.
playing the ultimate team game. They're finally playing the team game.
We went straight to assuming these were team orders.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It was not.
surprise, surprise. It wasn't. It was a Lando.
Not only my butt that was clenched. It was all of the McLaren pit wall collectively released their bums.
Yeah.
And be like, whew.
Well, yeah. And I mean, we find out that Lando made this decision and was telling his wall, I'm going to try and do this. And they were like, don't do it.
It's too risky. Yeah, he's
Don't
too
do
close. We don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah. And he's like, I thought I had the gap and I could do it. Great. It worked out. This could have gone horribly wrong.
Which the clout you have to have with your team. Now, Lando's got to go into 2025 and 2026 with I can do whatever the F I want.
Yeah.
Because I made the decision. I didn't get in shit for it. It all worked out. You guys listen to me and forget everybody else.
Yeah, honestly. The fact that he did it. But I do have a rant about
Please
this
do,
McLaren
because
1-2.
We've got lots today. This might be an hour and a half.
So, yeah, right? Lando and Oscar have traded these wins this year. And, we're acting like it's a whole team coming together like, oh, please do this, whatever. Really, McLaren has no idea what they're doing.
No. Throwing shit at the wall.
Right. It's to support the team, yes. And I understand, he did it for me, so I got to do it for him. What are we doing? What are we doing? Because we are risking it. I know that the Drivers' Championship is done, but you still want to come second. And we are wasting points. You do not get into the Hall of Fame by giving someone wins, regardless if they're in a sprint or not. We need to establish dominance and just it doesn't make sense.
This is what I was saying last week. So this was everything and to your credit, at the beginning of the year, you're going to see a Lando villain era. I think Lando's image, quote unquote image, has been, I don't want to say damaged because everybody likes a villain. Mm-hmm. I love a villain. But it's been changed so much where he's like, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the nice guy. You've got a whole other year next year to be the nice guy. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do it now. You don't have to do it in such a risky place. No. It goes back to Las Vegas last year where you've got the 1-2. So in terms of Constructors Championship points, it's all the same. Which my other rant was about the whole Fred Vasseur talking to Charles and Carlos about them, you do what Ferrari says because it's for the better of the team. They were 3 and 4. The better of the team, it doesn't fucking matter whatsoever. It is about your goddamn public image and your driver that you just tossed out of here versus the one you're keeping. Yeah. It's very self-serving. It has nothing to do with the Ferrari itself and the Constructors Championship. So as much as I love Fred, I know that was a message from Ferrari down to the drivers, not from Fred.
Yeah, he had to pass that down.
Fred's not an idiot. Yeah, he's the one. He's just the messenger. Yeah, but it's that same thing. It makes no difference whatsoever, and it's inconsequential. Nobody's going to remember you being that nice guy. No. Be it next year.
Yeah. Start off the year fresh.
Yeah. 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 And when it's less risky than it is now. Yeah. And don't give George the confidence going into next year. No. Because he's obviously the fastest of the Mercedes drivers right now.
And this being nice and giving someone a win and whatever has cost you guys the drivers. Had some of these positions not been
you got to switch first 6 months, first 6 races.
Yeah. You don't need to switch around to make this stuff happen. You guys focusing on switching around and figuring it out didn't help you at all. So thanking him now in a sprint, which, everybody's like, oh, it's so nice. Lando gets off, and he's doing his interview and says, I don't care about sprint wins anyways. I'm not here to win a sprint.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You go from a very, obviously you're trying to make it look good. It's obviously a very self-serving act. And then you can continue to look like a fucking dick.
Yeah.
By saying, I don't even give a shit about this. I'll give it to him. I'll give it to my little brother. I don't care. I'm done playing with that toy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'm here to win races.
Yeah.
Let's get into the race.
Well, let's see what happens there. Might have wanted to keep that sprint win.
As GP, like I told you, wanted to say, karma is a bitch.
Yeah.
But for so many reasons.
Yeah. It's just, McLaren has been so frustrating. And I actually was messaging with a friend who listens, Aaron.
How dare you.
Right. And I was like, I feel like collectively we need to you hear the stuff on TV in the middle of the night. Have you been personally victimized by McLaren? Because we all have. We all have this.
Do they have a McLaren hotline?
Yeah, they should.
They should
phone in and, anyways, that's my rant about McLaren and this.
It's a
stop.
good one. We're not done yet. We're not done.
No, we're not done with McLaren. But we're done with the sprint. That's all for now.
Yeah, that was really all that happened in the sprint. That was just other than the fact that George was so close, of note.
Yeah. Yes. And so George has his third. He's a little.
We're not done with George. No, we're not done.
Yeah, George is a little frustrated with his third place, and he's complaining with the post race and what have you.
Yeah, but saying that it's if I'm a fan watching at home, this is not what I want to see. Just the teams working together. I want to see people win on merit. If this was the other way around, George would be like, it's a great team game. We played our strategy perfectly. Like, stop being so goddamn political, George.
Yeah, and I mean, the point he makes is valid.
Absolutely.
I don't like seeing
That's the real
them
George
pass,
coming out.
But yes, it is the real George.
We have seen the real George this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like, oh, here's a win for you. Here's a win. No. So George makes some comments, and then 3 hours later or 4 hours later.
It's also millions of dollars for McLaren.
Yeah.
You're talking about millions, and at that point, between 1 and 2, you're probably talking tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Between 1 and 2. So yeah, George, shut up. They did what they needed to do for their team.
Yeah. I mean, go them.
Yeah.
He's just frustrated, which I don't really know why. You just won. You just won in Vegas. And I know your car is getting faster, but
he won. But he won on the day that Max won his 4th championship.
True.
So he was circumcised in Vegas. Yeah, he was cut in Vegas. Am I wrong?
No,
George wins his third, the most out of all the other drivers other than Max. Does anybody else have 3? Lando has 3.
Lando has 3, I think. Yeah.
So either way,
he's tying. Yeah.
An achievement over the last 2 years to get 3 races in a season.
Yeah.
And nobody cares.
No.
Nobody. Not one.
No. Not George.
Nobody. The only people that care less than George's third win is Ferrari's mechanics when Carlos gets a podium. But that's besides the point.
Not showing up.
That's last week's news. Yeah. So I can see where he's pissed. He's been pissed off
for
since
a week.
Vegas.
Yeah, he's been pissed for a week. And I mean, the shots kind of started on Thursday. The shots towards not drinking shots, shots fired at
I think
Max.
They're all going. They've just
with Max was in the clubs until 9 a.m. and he was partying. Yeah, he just won his 4th championship.
He's got to do nothing else for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So
he won without winning a race since the break.
Yeah. Came what, 6th?
Yeah.
Something like that. So
yeah.
Anyways. 3 hours later we jump into quali for the race. And
George isn't done.
George is not done. But Q1
but we'll get into that.
Q1 we have again lap times being deleted, and it's going again across the entire crew. But Q1 out is kind of the usual suspects.
Albon,
Albon,
Lawson,
yeah,
Hulkenberg, Colapinto, which I'm surprised at Hulkenberg because he had a good showing for the sprint quali.
yeah,
Did not have a good showing for the regular quali.
race quality. And this is actually where Jensen said, he's qualifying in 17th, I think he was. But his
18th.
race pace is a lot faster than his quali pace.
Which is different. Usually
Yeah.
different because he's usually a better quali than he is. I mean, it's just the,
Right.
the nature of the car.
Yeah. So, and then this is where, Lawson doesn't get into, he gets knocked out in Q1, and he tries to blame Alonso for being so slow and holding him up and, basically yelling at his radio for Alonso's mistake.
Yeah.
And
Fucking Alonso again, he says.
Yeah. And his engineer goes back to him and says, it was Stroll. That's it. It was Stroll.
It was Stroll, yeah.
Like-
Can we give a special shout out to the race engineers?
Yeah.
For just being so deadpan honest with their drivers, basically telling them shut the fuck up without telling them to shut the F up.
Pretty
you know
much.
what I mean? Just just shut up, man. Just stop it. You want to talk about it, we'll talk about it after.
Yeah.
Stop being an idiot.
And it really did show that you still have a problem with Alonso. Why?
I told you he's got a problem with Spanish drivers. Perez, he's got. I think he had a dust up with science at some point. If not, it'll happen.
It'll happen.
But, was I whispering there?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you were whispering into the microphone.
Into really close. I don't know if you can hear this or not.
ASMR.
Can make some money.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it just odd, and you're out, and so is.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter.
You had 2 laps to make it through. You didn't make it. Don't blame one of them on somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Q2, we see both stake cars, which great that they're making it into Q2 because they haven't been for the whole season. But out in Q2 is Gasly in 11th, Zhou Guanyu in 12th, Bottas, Tsunoda, and Stroll.
Yeah, and like I said, good on them because we usually see them 18th, 19th, 20th in those 3 places. That 12 and 13, not even at the bottom of Q2, is, I mean, it's not points. It's could potentially be or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's not a bad showing for a car that's been absolutely horrible.
No, and
all year long,
they're ahead of 2 RBs, an Aston Martin, like
on a track that's a fast track.
Yeah. So they figured something out. Yeah. Then we get into Q3, trading positions as normal. George putting up good times. The Ferraris who had been flying the whole weekend, nothing out of those Ferraris.
Nothing, no.
Which
Perez
we thought it was
makes it into a Q3.
Yes. First Q3 in a long time.
In a long time. I don't know the last time he was in Q3. I mean, if he made it out of Q1 was a miracle. Q2 exit usually. Q3.
Yeah.
I mean,
he
needed it. He needed it.
Pretty good. And the race pace of Max specifically, because again, we weren't really paying attention to Perez other than just getting out. But the race pace of Max, or his speed, was something that everybody was kind of shocked by because SQ1 and the sprint, he didn't seem to have the pace. And all of a sudden, he's got purple sectors. Every fast lap, every hot lap he does, he's got purple sectors. And so it's kind of like, oh, so they really were just treating the sprint like a free practice.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being that Max gets pole, Russell in second, Lando in third.
And he only beat Russell by 5/100ths of a second. Like, it wasn't a lot.
Very close. And George was the last. And George is not the last person, but he's the last
Max
person
is the last person.
Yeah. And George is quickly on the radio, or we start to hear the radio quickly. He was probably on before that.
He was, it was just what was broadcast.
Yeah, that Max impeded. He cut me off. He can't do that. He's going too slow.
He's too slow, yeah.
Yeah, he's going too slow when I'm on my hot lap. Blah, blah, blah. He's asking the team to look into it. Red Bull is minding their own business. They're going about what's going on.
We know as of last year, as of 2021, I believe it was, as of 2021, where the the team directors, technical directors, or engineers don't have a line to the race director anymore.
No.
So what you'll see is drivers just putting it on the radios. They'll put it on the radios, and hopefully they'll look into it.
Yeah. And I think they can submit a request, but it's not directly to the race director.
They can submit like a review or whatever if they feel that
something was done,
or something was against regulation. Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't have the direct line to Mikey.
No, to call him. You had to call Mikey anymore.
Yeah, they can't call him anymore.
That's so not right. Always
George would be saying that.
Yeah.
And yeah, your Austrian Toto sounds Jamaican.
To be fair, he kind of sounded like Austrian Jamaican that day.
Yes, he did.
I'm going with it.
He did. We'll go with it. So while everybody is saying Max on pole, his first pole in a long time, there's this no one's really talking about it because we don't know if it's going to be taken anywhere. It was filed with the stewards, but we kind of think this might come, that there might be some sort of penalty. We basically learned this morning before the race that there was a penalty given to Max. It was one grid place. Don't know where the one
grid place penalty, which I thought was odd, because where the F do we see a one grid place penalty?
Yeah,
because have never seen.
No, because Lando was also I was thinking if he gets a penalty, he's starting in P5 or P6. If they're going to give him,
or the lap time will be deleted, whatever he goes to his previous lap.
Yeah. So, I was thinking when I saw that the starting lineup has now changed to George in P1, and then I saw that Max got a one place grid penalty. I was like, this was a slap on the wrist because George was yelling, and I hadn't seen any of the drama yet, but I was just like.
Not even just that he was yelling. So usually you see a penalty for somebody impeding because they're on their hot lap and that person is on the racing line, or they weren't told in time to get out of the way, or whatever it is. Max was on a slow lap. Yes, maybe he was going extra slow, maybe not intentionally or whatever. I don't know if he was touching something on his dials, or maybe he was intentionally going that slow. I don't know. George was also on a slow lap. He was not on his hot lap.
Yeah.
It looks like, when I watched it back, he speeds up going into those couple turns. So whether he should get in temperature to his tires, or he did it intentionally, or whatever, I don't want to make any kind of assumptions. But they're both on a slow lap. Yeah. So how do you impede somebody? You're not impeding their lap time.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything. So how do you give somebody a penalty for impeding when they haven't impeded what your goal is?
Yeah.
They haven't.
George he sped up, and it was almost as if he was getting ready to, like you said, get heat in the tires to then get to the line really quickly. And also, it's not like Max was behind some hidden corner. It's a blind corner. You could see him.
You can see that whole track.
Everybody on that track.
Unless you're behind the pit wall or the main straight, you can see where people are. There's no trees. There's no grandstands in between the middle of the track. You can see people throughout that.
Yeah. So weird. And I was like, one grid place. Okay, cool. Whatever. He's in second. It's not going to be that big of a deal.
It's almost like you had to see, and maybe because Max was calling out British, I'm gonna just speak really close to the mic. Yeah. maybe because Max was complaining about the British media, that because a British driver was complaining, that they felt they had to do something, and they thought, well, let's give something, but we don't want to really give them too much because we don't actually think it's wrong, but we don't actually want to look like we're not doing anything about it.
Right.
So maybe on our first race weekend, after we've had this big steward controversy, which we'll get into, we'll do something about it.
Yeah. It's the only explanation, really. It's our only explanation.
It is. We've all been in effed up situations of work. And we're like, how the hell do we get out of this with the least amount of blowback as possible?
Yeah, honestly. So we see this, and then kind of when the race is starting, we hear that there was a little bit of drama with this whole grid penalty switching. And we don't get all of the details until after
We find
the
out
race.
there's a lot more drama.
Yeah. But in the beginning, we hear that there was a comment that, and because I thought it was before the race, that George said, or Max said, don't worry, I'll get it back.
He told George that
directly to his face.
I'll get that. And it kind of seems because we've seen them together. We've seen them, and even before this weekend, they joke around. They play paddleball together.
Yeah.
Whatever. They have a relationship off track. When I saw that, I just thought it was just like, oh yeah, I'll get it back.
Yeah, don't worry, take it. Yeah,
no problem. It was just like buddies just joking around.
Yeah.
Competitiveness between friends.
Yeah. What we later find out, that's not what happened. But we'll get into that after we talk about the race a little bit. But so George now has the line that he wants. He has P1. He's got the cleaner of the lines because of
But Max
where
has
we're
the
starting.
inside track.
But Max has the inside track. And red lights go on, red lights go off. It's a beautiful start for everybody. Again, I don't know, everybody was just on it this weekend with their starts.
Off the line,
but George
yes.
loses, off the line. Good start. But George loses 2 positions right away. And Lando almost gets Max very quickly as well. But Max was able to push him wide where they both stayed on track. That's just
Max played it hard. He played it fair. He took that inside line and he took the quote unquote apex. And Lando was right on there, just wanted to be the benefactor. He knew they were going to be fighting. He knew they were going to be fighting, and he was just going to bide his time and hope for the best, which he had quite the opening. Yeah, and Lando was ahead ever so slightly, and then Max just kind of took off. And, again, clean. It was clean fighting. And I texted you and I said, this is what we wanted to see last weekend for the championship battle. This was the race that we were due. The beginning of this race. But very quickly, there's a yellow flag that comes out. It's a pileup, really, which is so unfortunate. Yeah. I think it was
Hulkenberg
goes into Ocon, who goes into the Williams of Franco Colapinto. Yeah. Oh, those Williams drivers. Yeah. They've had 19 damages, I think they said.
I think it was.
It was in the teens.
16
maybe.
I think it was 16. Yeah.
16, maybe.
16 damages.
I mean,
year.
even before this race, they were at $10.5 million of damages, which is almost double. Of what the next competitor is, which is Red Bull. This time, the car didn't look that bad. This just looks like we've got to. They were beached. They weren't going to be able to move.
Yeah. We're just going to have to pay for the crane to move us out. Some new
the
tires.
Car can't get out. The
floor, that kind of stuff.
A little carbon fiber. That's it.
Yeah. They're going to come next week with no paint. It's just going to be a black carbon fiber.
I heard they only had one wing going into this week, one extra front wing. Which they weren't. So if they had a real damage, they were definitely not good for the rest of the year.
So there's that. Stroll also hits Albon and almost Zhao in that. It wasn't quite in that kerfuffle, but kerfuffle.
It was just in front,
But
for anybody who's not Canadian, kerfuffle is a word.
Yeah, just throwing out random words.
Pretty sure it's in the dictionary.
Yeah, it should be. In Sabrina's dictionary. And everybody, again, instantly on the radios yelling about Stroll. And how annoying. We knew he was going to do it.
I knew it. I heard it. I knew he was going to do that.
Yeah. And Zhao, who didn't actually get hit by him, is complaining about what he saw.
Yeah.
But he almost got hit, but just kind of funny. And then Ocon and Colapinto out because of that. They got beached. Couldn't get out. Yeah. Safety car during all of this, and Max is in the lead. We know how he is with a restart. He got away really well. And then on the restart, Lawson goes off, causing another yellow flag very quickly.
Yeah.
And that yellow flag there was no safety car with that one. It's just he got himself out, I think. I think he just went off.
He got
and then turned around
because he didn't DNF. We had 5 DNFs.
Yeah.
In this one.
Yeah, so he was fine. And then Stroll is told to come in to retire his car. But he got a 10-second penalty kind of at the same time that he was told to retire the car. So they
changed his tires. They sent him back out so he can serve. They changed the tires so he can serve that, so he doesn't serve it next race.
Yeah, and then he did one
retired.
lap. He did one lap, came back around, retired it. We hear about Hamilton and a false start.
Yeah, potential false start.
And Jensen was kind of like, no, couldn't be. And then he said he watched it. We didn't see it yet, but he watched it, and he said, I kind of think I saw him catch himself. Like Hamilton.
And then we hear the radio.
Yeah, and Hamilton knew that
as soon as he comes off the line, he says, "Sorry, guys, sorry."
Yeah.
Like, he knew right away, like that penalty's coming. And then, like, even if you had just slightly, because they watched that back and they played that replay, it was milliseconds before that light goes out.
Yeah.
And I know the FIA or whatever is going to look at it through timings and on their board and everything, but don't call yourself out.
No.
Like, don't say
hey, sorry.
I guarantee you, I know my false start.
Yeah.
Like, let them decide that.
You got to pull, was it Perez a couple races ago that was like
no
totally
way.
outside?
Check it,
It's like, what do you mean? Buddy, you're not in the box at all.
Nobody else moved.
So Yuki and Kevin Magnussen had some great fighting. Again, close. No, I don't think they touched at all.
No, they didn't touch. No.
Lawson gets a penalty. Lots of penalties were thrown around today.
There were penalties thrown around everywhere, and then nothing done about the things that you need to do for people's safety.
Yeah. Which,
it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating as a driver. It's frustrating as a viewer.
Well, yeah, because we're watching a disaster about to happen.
Go get it.
Yeah. Literally, just run.
Just do it. Just not
run.
even a virtual safety car.
No.
But we'll get into it.
Into it. Yeah. Lap 24.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say lap 24.
You're on lap 24, yeah.
Russell pits and has a 7-second pit stop.
Now.
Comes out in 11th. And he was going for an undercut.
I'm in the middle of doing barbecue. I don't understand where the 7 seconds were. So I heard it and I saw it and I just didn't realize that he was 7 seconds in the pit. Were they just wrong with his tires?
The back the back right wouldn't come off.
I missed exactly what the reason was.
Yeah. Back right wouldn't come off and he just sat there and he was going for an undercut and like he was supposed to come out, I think it would have been like 6th.
Is that the moment they put him back on hard?
And then they put the wrong tires
and then
on.
He lost his shit.
Yeah.
He said, "Why are we on hards?" He wanted to be on mediums, and he is now. Obviously, we've done away with the swearing during the race penalties.
Oh, yes, we have apparently.
Well, clearly, because they haven't happened for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
they haven't happened since Charles got a penalty.
Yeah,
which everybody thought was ridiculous, and then everybody swore. Which you've got some theories, but
yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess we both do. But
yeah, he is just not happy about this. And essentially right after this, he comes out in 11th where, again, he was supposed to come out in like a 6th.
Yeah.
Or 7th based on timing. He comes
in like behind Magnussen.
Yeah, but based on timings and who he would have to fight through and how fast his car is, whatever. They were thinking he would come out in 6th, assuming it's a 2.5 second pit stop. Comes out in 11th. So that kind of not ruins his race, but really is going to frustrate you.
Yeah, it takes out several laps that he's got to pass other people.
Yeah.
And try and get back into some kind of podium contention.
Well, and now you're fighting, opposed to just having to fight 3 cars to get on the podium, you now have to fight 7 cars. And then shortly after that, we see something on track. We don't really know what it is at this point. It's across from the pit lane. And then we realize it's somebody's
mirror.
That's just flying off. We later find out it's Albon.
Did you see the replay?
Yeah. It just
Like you see it there, and they did a close up. You see it, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like a magic trick. It's
Yeah.
just gone.
it just like disappeared. And it's Albon's mirror, so now Albon can't see if anybody's coming up behind him.
On his right side, yeah.
Yeah, just make sure everybody passes on the left. And it's just in the middle
of the track.
Middle of the track of the
middle of
DRS zone.
Yeah. Right down the main straight, the only DRS zone, the only real easy way to pass somebody.
Yeah.
Is on the outside, off the driving line.
Yeah. It's off the racing line, but if you want to pass, you've got to
That's
essentially,
your line.
Yeah, it's your line. And it is just, it's there. And we're going laps. Nothing's happening.
So they do put out the double waved yellows, which is slow down in the straight, which Jensen made a good point. I mean, you're putting double waved yellows, lift off, proceed with caution. Basically, you can't use DRS. You're not supposed to use DRS, which we did see a McLaren using DRS. But if you're lifting off and you're slowing down at your only position to pass, it's going to be a really shitty race.
Well,
and they go on like this for lap after lap after lap after lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, and
it's absolutely ridiculous. If there's debris on track, you remove the debris.
Yeah.
Virtual safety car, whatever.
And Crofty and Jensen are like, this is dangerous. Like, are they really not going to do anything? Like, this is...
And I'm watching this, and we go through, and I remember this is 4 laps after. So all this talk about when the double wave yellows come out, Max lifts off shortly after the double wave yellows comes through. All the talk is about, Lando didn't lift off because Max quickly on the radio saying he's closed that gap. He didn't lift off, check the cameras or check the timings, whatever, and said, yeah, we'll do it, whatever. And so that's all going on. They're talking about that. And I'm thinking in this, by the time lap 3 comes around with this debris there, I'm like, somebody's going to get it. Somebody's going to take it. Yeah. I know they can't pass, but somebody's going to go over this at some point.
Yeah.
And sure enough, 5-6 laps with this thing in the middle of the track, we have a back marker who is obligated to move over the track to let a faster car through, and the only place he has to go is right over this debris.
Yeah.
The FIA, the stewards, the race director made no call to remove this stuff, and now they've compromised somebody else's race.
Well,
several people,
and it wasn't Bottas's tire, because at first I thought it was his tire.
Goes right under him.
It goes under the floorboard, so I'm sure that is scratched to shit at that point.
But he destroys it at that point. Now there's more debris.
It explodes at this
track.
point. Yeah, there's just debris everywhere, and Lewis and Carlos are right there. They both go through it, and I
believe it was like a lap or 2 after.
Yeah, it actually was,
because Bottas goes over it. They're talking about it. Then it's like a lap or another 2. And they still do nothing about it.
Yeah, nothing. And then we see, or we hear, Lewis's time is going down. Oh, Carlos's time is he's losing time, and they go over to seeing their cars. Both of them have punctures because they've just driven through this debris. And
this debris made it to the end of the pit straight at some point. At one point.
Yeah. And you've now endangered, I think there are probably 16 drivers remaining at that point, but you've endangered them, and you have ruined 2 people's cars. And right after that, Lewis and Carlos both go in to change their tires because they have to. Once those 2 come out, safety car,
yeah.
Hello. Only took
your inaction
6 laps.
has absolutely destroyed this race.
Yeah.
You take all that effort, and then when the safety car comes out, because they've destroyed this and they've had to change their tires, even when the safety car's out, they don't even bother going down the main straight anymore.
Yeah.
They just say, okay, we're just going to take the safety car and all the other cars through the pit lane. Because it's too dangerous to take everybody through the main straight.
Yeah.
It was too dangerous 8 laps ago.
it was also more dangerous when they were driving 300 kilometers an hour, not so much when they're driving 100 kilometers an hour. Like
even with the double waved yellows, it's not a safety car. It's not a VSC. It just
Yeah.
says lift off.
Yeah.
Be cautious, whatever.
no DRS.
At 120 kilometers, if they get a puncture and they go into a brick wall,
Yeah.
that's dangerous.
You're done. Like
They're- Their inaction and overaction in this race at the
Yeah.
same time has
Yeah.
been just an absolute debacle.
Yeah, it's just not good. But like you said, we start to hear about this Lando thing being taken a little bit more seriously because we have Max consistently talking to GP, and GP's like, we're talking about it with them right now.
Yeah.
And it's a while actually from when it first happened, because like you said, it's about 8 laps at this point, to when we finally see that Lando gets this penalty. Post race, Naomi Schiff was talking about it, and she made a comment about she thinks it took so long because they wanted to look at every driver to see did everybody lift, because it was
Fair.
just the double, which totally fair. Anthony Davidson, again, post race, he talks about Lando had the light. So this just goes to like Max's mentality and like how good he is in a car. Lando had the light and he would have seen the double waved flags.
Yeah.
Where Max had already passed the light. So he didn't even see the light. He was just looking at the double waved flags way down the road. And even seeing that, he could also see and probably hear that Lando didn't lift off. So, I mean, it's crazy. And then it gets crazier with the penalty that Lando is given.
Like an absurdly strict, over the top penalty.
Yeah. So he gets a 10-second stop and go penalty, which I'll explain in a second here. But it's a 10-second penalty, which we kind of think that's a lot. For you guys didn't think it was that dangerous, so why should he think it's that dangerous? Yeah, now he's in the wrong. But anyways, he comes in to do his penalty.
Stop and go, yeah.
And it drops him to 15th. I'm going to talk about another penalty that came up.
Last place.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in last place at this point.
Well, because we've had so many safety cars, everybody bunches up.
Yeah.
And because he's got, I mean, you lose, what did they say? I think it was like 21, 25 seconds
25,
on a regular pit stop. But plus the 10 seconds, he's over 30 seconds, 35 seconds, whatever it is. And because everybody's bunched up with a safety car, or has been in the previous laps, because by the time he serves the penalty, it's a green flag again.
Yeah.
So everybody's already speeding up.
Yeah.
But they've all been bunched up. So he's lost 30. There's maybe 32 seconds between all drivers at that point.
Yeah. It's close for him. Not so close because he's now in 15th. There's a safety car restart. Perez and Hülkenberg come together.
Yes.
So then there is another safety car that comes out, which is disastrous for Perez. I mean, the last thing he needs is to be out of a race or
Don't believe
DNF.
this one is this. What's this?
It wasn't his fault.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't his fault at all. But just regardless, still sucks. Then we see a notice that Lewis gets a penalty for speeding in the pit. Oh,
was this after this? This was after the stop and go.
yes.
Did you want to explain what a stop and go?
I'm going to do them both at the same time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just because we had them both.
Wait, did we pass that?
So Lewis gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. At which point did he speed in the pit lane? We don't even know at this point because there's been so much.
Racing this.
Right? Like, there's been so much going on that he's had a puncture. He went in. They were driving through the pit lane with the safety car. So not really sure when he got that speeding. Lewis's penalty is a drive-through penalty. So now we have a 10-second stop and go, and Lewis has a drive-through.
Yeah, they're throwing out penalties and odd ones that we don't usually see.
Yeah.
A lot.
So Lewis says, I'm just going to retire the car.
Yeah.
Bono says, no, you're not.
I'm not having fun here.
Yeah.
I want to go home.
Yeah, I mean, and he was kind of complaining the entire race, but anyways, is the car not working, what have you. So he says no. He says, well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to turn off the car. And they say, don't, because if you do, then we're going to have to take the penalty in Abu Dhabi. Just do the drive-through penalty.
Don't bother.
Yeah. So this is lap 49. So let me pause here and I'll explain what these penalties are again, because we don't see these very often or at all. But so stop and go, which is what Lando got, is very harsh. It is a very harsh penalty. Even Jensen was surprised by it, and it will always ruin someone's race. So
when you are fighting for a podium, fighting for a race win,
yeah,
a stop and go penalty is effectively nullifying them. Like you are a non-factor anymore.
Yeah, it will ruin your race. So basically, it kind of sounds what it is. Stop and go. Driver will come into the pits. They go to their pit stop. There's no team out. The team is just there to make sure you stop. They cannot touch your car. Your car stays in position for 10 seconds, and then you continue out of the pits. This is not a free pit stop, so they can't then switch your tires or what have you. You actually the penalty includes going in, stopping, driving out. If you need your tires changed, you got to go around and come back through again.
And it had to be served within the next 2 laps.
Yes. So
they
that's
had a time restriction on how fast they had to serve this.
Yeah. So with the stop and go, there is time on it as well, which is, again, bizarre. So you don't even have the option to like create a little bit of space, speed up and get a 10-second gap between you and somebody else, so you don't come out in last. You don't have that option.
Which, I mean, for that one, and the reason it's so harsh is because the FIA will always stand behind. It was a safety issue. They didn't follow the safety regulations. So therefore, that's why we impose such a harsh penalty. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. You had, like we said before, you had a safety issue and you did nothing about it. Yeah. So where's your penalty?
Yeah. Where's your fine? Exactly. Like you could have injured. Sure. Yeah.
You know what? Lando wants to stop or not lift off. You want to give him a stop and go penalty? Fine. How about right there? You give it a VSC. You give it a safety car, and you clear. All you had to do was just pick it up and move it. Instead of wait until somebody ran over it, and now you got to clean up the whole track for 3 laps.
Yeah. And I'm sure there was still debris on that track.
Oh yeah.
But then we have Lewis's penalty, which was a drive-through penalty. So kind of a dumb one. It's a slap on the wrist, but it kind of sounds exactly what it sounds like. He now has to drive through the pit lane, which results in you having to slow down because there is a speed limit in the pit lane, which he got the penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But anyways,
is that kind of like you were too fast and you're too fast in the pit lane, so let's make you go through it again to make sure you do it properly.
Yeah. When you
is he 5?
Well, I was just going to say, when you're a kid and you say sorry to your parents, like, what are you sorry for? Like you have to you can't just say
prove
you're sorry.
It to me that you're really sorry and show me you can do it right.
Yeah. So you really just drive through the pit lane. You lose those 21 seconds through. So he tumbles to the bottom too. He didn't go as far because at that point the race had moved on a little bit, but still it ruins your race. And obviously we just wanted to talk about them because they're penalties that we haven't heard all year. They're penalties that we haven't heard in the last 3 years, let's say. I think Albon got one of them a couple years ago, but still.
And this was all kind of a result, this was all a result of that one incident. We have that mirror that flies off. We have the FIA doing absolutely nothing other than throwing out two flags. The marshals were there waiting to go. We did absolutely nothing, and now all of a sudden they are victims of their, like I said, their inaction, their decision to not do anything for so long. Yeah. We also have punctures for Carlos and Hamilton. They ruined their races. Bottas, who also has sparks and damage to his floor, which he finished, what was it, 11th, 12th? 11th. He
11th,
may have possibly, he got caught by Lando at the end, but maybe he could have passed. Maybe could have passed Magnussen if he didn't have damage. We don't know.
Yeah.
We can speculate all we want,
Yeah.
but you know, you do all these things, and all of a sudden, at lap, was it 40, 35, something like that? You're
like that,
taking
yeah.
the race into your own hands.
Yeah, and making it more dangerous than it needs to be. At the end of the day, there's just a danger on track in
And then
the
imposing
worst possible.
ridiculous fines
Yeah.
or penalties
yeah.
on people who don't necessarily deserve that harsh of a penalty.
Yeah, and I
Which
mean,
I've got some theories.
I did see that when Anthony Davidson at the end, he was kind of talking about the penalties because, again, it was like, why were these so harsh? He did say he took a look at the rule book, and Anthony Davidson is a strategist. He does the reviews of the races and looks at the driver on boards and all that. He did say the stewards, race director, whatever, would open up the rule book, and the rule book says stop and go penalty is the penalty. But we've been throwing around random things. One grid place penalty.
There hasn't been
We've
any
been making stuff up.
consistency
Yeah.
in penalties.
That's the
Throughout
frustration.
this, there hasn't been. And it just seems like they just throw out whatever the hell they want. And all of a sudden, now is the time to follow the rule book to the letter.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with all this. But, yeah, I mean, the race kind of continues. At this point, Lewis is pissed. Lewis does not want to be there at all. Lap 55 of 57, Lando, who was in 15th, is up to P10. He has consistently gotten fastest lap after lap, even after dropping to P15.
Well, he passed Lewis and, not Lewis, Tsunoda and Bottas in the same lap.
Yeah. Like, he
up
was
10. Yeah.
just absolutely flying, which is really shitty because it could have been a really good race for Lando. It could have been a really good race for McLaren. McLaren could have won the Constructors' Championship today. Yeah. And unfortunately, they didn't get the points that they needed because Lando only finished in P10. And Ferrari is still...
Is it 19 or 29 points now?
I don't remember.
It's one of those two. Anyways.
Ferrari could still... 21 points. There is a chance that, both teams they need both drivers to either get a podium or finish higher than the other two drivers.
I mean, if we have a Ferrari 1, 2, depending on where McLaren finishes, we don't, maybe not, but
they got to work for it next weekend. And it's just, I mean, the race finishes, Max wins. I don't remember who came second.
Leclerc second.
Yeah, I was like,
how you don't even remember Leclerc
I know.
second? I am disappointed.
You're calling him.
And Oscar in third.
Yeah, it was. I mean, good for Max. He had a good race.
Max drove his race, and other than being cut off at the knees at the at qualifying. He did exactly what he said. He took that lead right at the beginning. He never lost it again. It wasn't a problem for him. Not happy with George still.
No, and before we get into George, we've heard this before, but Charles did not have water for the entire race.
It's not the first time
This
either.
is not the first time that
it's probably like the third in the last year and a half, 2 years.
That he has had a water issue. Like, can somebody fix the water issue in Charles' car? Thanks.
Which, I mean, we're going to go into a bunch of, I guess, conspiracy theories or just thoughts or anything we have. Mm-hmm. Maybe not a bunch, but a few. And I had mine where they're just, again, Ferrari and their sponsorship image issues. They just want to keep him thin enough,
Yeah.
so he can obligate to their sponsors.
That like gaunt look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just
Model
that
behavior.
very cut jaw.
Yeah.
They just don't give him water.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's a prisoner.
Yeah, honestly. Well, yeah, Ferrari. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. So, I mean, that was the race. And then we hear all the drama. You go on your rant now.
Can I say something here, though?
Yes.
I want, like, and again, it's back to the FIA.
Mm-hmm.
There's been, and it's tying in a little bit of news. Like this week, we had the race steward. I forget, I have his name here. I just can't remember exactly what it was. Anyways, the one, Tim Mayer, sorry. The one that had some connection to McLaren after Brazil, was it?
Yes.
It was Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was Brazil, and then they had 2 weeks, and then it was Vegas and whatever. This week, he was let go. They said he was supposed to be pursuing other whatever. He came out this week saying that he did not resign. Sorry.
Yeah.
He was let go by text through Ben's executive assistant or whatever after 15 years of service. He is a platinum level steward, which is the highest ranking of steward you can have. They're volunteers. Now, do I think there was any kind of conflict of interest in Brazil? No, I don't. I think that was a bunch of media drum up or people that were McLaren fans that said, you know, this is, or not, sorry, not McLaren fans, Red Bull fans that were drumming up some kind of drama that wasn't actually there. I think Tim Mayer probably does a very good job himself, and takes a lot of pride in his work. To come out with this and then fire somebody over bullshit and the way you do it for somebody who's given their life to the sport because they love the sport, and then you go ahead and have this kind of circus. I feel like they were overcompensating for the level of incompetence that they've shown over the last 3 weeks or whatever it is, or specifically Ben and how the organization is being run. I don't care if I don't get fucking invited to an FIA or a sanctioned event.
You can just not invite him.
Invite Sabrina. It's fine. It's fine. I'll stay home. It's okay.
I'll go.
It feels like some kind of overcompensation and absolute micromanagement by the FIA president. No, I don't think he's ever going to be gone. I said this to you today. I don't think he'll be reelected after this year, but he'll be somebody who holds on to his position for as long as he can.
Yeah,
it was an absolute disaster, and I think it was an absolute disaster by design. Not that they wanted to be a disaster, but they wanted to take control and show their grip on the sport.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. I think this was you kind of go from, and this is where the FIA and the stewards is a little bit interesting, because I don't think we've actually talked about this, is how it's not the same people every week. It changes.
No, they're volunteers, and they get elected to a certain race.
Yeah.
For whatever.
And it's just bizarre. There's an issue with that in itself, right? When you consistently are changing people, they should all be going through, the rule book. But we don't.
Well,
we go through opinions and, what I think this is what the driver was trying to do, and they were trying to lift. They were going to do that. That doesn't work, because your opinion and my opinion are going to be different, so we're going to have inconsistencies. But now we've hired somebody or brought somebody in that is going to be by the book. Good. Maybe that is what we need to be doing, but maybe we need to talk about that before we just do it. We need to implement, listen, going forward, there's been so much drama this year. We are going to follow textbook. The penalty says this, so nobody can argue it. But when we're throwing out one grid place penalty, making up penalties for swearing, making up penalties the whole year, and then all of a sudden throw everything at one person this week, it doesn't make sense.
And I think that's where we've seen this inconsistency. Now we have maybe not new race stewards; they probably have the same race stewards.
Yeah,
but they're under a microscope at this point.
Yeah.
Then we have a new race director who's probably breathing down their neck.
Yeah.
who's new, who's in his second race, and doesn't look like he has control of this race.
No.
Then we have a president who is making comments and feels like he's being personally slighted, and he's just going to take it out. We heard him today this week say that the drivers are there, they're there to drive, and they have no business dealing with anything with the FAA. I'm sorry, but you regulate the sport that they drive in.
Yeah.
They pay money to you to be in this sport. You take money from their winnings, a percentage of whatever they win, depending on what place they're in, to yourselves, to pay yourselves so you can regulate them. They have a voice. I don't care who you are.
You also have a drivers union. So
exactly.
Yeah, they have
Without
a voice.
a driver, you have nothing. You have no. The F1 championship is probably their biggest moneymaker.
Oh yeah.
So you cannot say that the drivers and the teams that support their drivers and their opinions have no voice.
Yeah, and it's
get off your high horse.
Yeah, it's
and
them
listen.
on track. I mean, I know we both started watching Senna this weekend, but if you go back to Senna era.
Jean-Marie Ballastre.
Yeah, you go back to this era of drivers speaking up out of safety, fear, essentially, of what's happening on track. If people didn't do that, people would continue to die in this sport. We have seen people, not as much as it was happening previously.
Yeah.
Ayrton Senna spoke up in the race weekend that he died. So
we've seen Niki Lauda do it too.
Yeah, so you can't say these drivers shouldn't have a voice and they shouldn't have.
They just stick to just driving.
It's not like they're speaking up about politics or what they're speaking about their sport and what's happening to them. So it's bizarre that
And to go into a rant, like every sport has a players union or whatever. Now the drivers don't necessarily have a union or anything. But every sport has a players union. They have people, they have voices. They have a representation for the players, and representation for their management, and representation for the governing body, whatever it is. And you're supposed to work together to make it a better, fair, safer environment for everybody.
Yeah.
If you're going to sit there and say, well, this is my dictatorship,
that's
and
what we're saying.
You have absolutely no fucking business in this. What happens when the racers just sit out? What happens when they're not happy with them and they just sit out the whole season, and they're not making any money?
There's $0 being spent, and you got to refund all these people.
What the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah. I agree. I don't think he will be reelected based on pretty much the last even 3 months.
When was the last time you heard the FIA president's name so much in a season?
God. Mikey, no. No, I'm kidding.
But that was a couple races.
Yeah.
That was a couple races. I have never heard the FIA president from race 1 to race 24.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so involved and putting himself.
Combative.
Yes, combative. And putting himself in the drama. Some of the stuff has nothing to really do with him, and he's just right up in it. And it's we could go on forever about it, and but it is frustrating. And I mean, we're just spectators, we're watching, we're lovers of the sport. I can only imagine what the drivers feel every night or every weekend when they're like, oh, here we go again. They get the email about the new rule or no rule of something,
or the asinine decision on something that makes no sense and has never been done before.
And I mean, George mentioned the concern of you fired 4 people. Why?
And several others have left.
We kind of what's going on that this is, and that happens in any company. If people are being fired, being let go, leaving the company, maybe you're not going to get the actual answer, but you want to know what's going on.
I had it somewhere. I had it I did have exactly who has left, and I can't remember exactly where it was.
There's a bunch of people.
But there was 7 or 8 people either fired or left.
Yeah, it's a lot. But anyways, that's our first rant. Now on to George Russell. And Matt, this is kind of our news. This is our only news, really.
After the first rant, I'm like, do I have enough in me? Do I have? I
mean, it's kind of quick. It's not really a rant.
It is a rant. George needs to, and yes, I'm a Max fan. But I'm kind of on Max's side here. Like what Max said
Have to
this
be.
weekend is, George has been a little two-faced. Like very proper, very British, very sportive, lovely. I'm everybody's friend. Hey, look at me. And then just the biggest whiny little bitch.
Wanker.
Yeah, wank. There,
Wank-
thank you, wanker, wanker.
Ted Lasso reference.
Yeah. I mean, we see complaints all the time, but at some point, it's just shut up and now I sound like the FIA
You're
president.
Ben.
Just shut up and
Shut up and
drive.
drive.
But like let them do their job. They will
Mm-hmm.
figure it out and stop trying to influence the race politically. Like just drop.
Yeah, and so what we saw, I don't know if you have the quote there with you, but what we heard was, and Max has talked about it twice, talked about it in
You talking
post
about
race.
Max's quote?
Yes.
Oh yes, I have that.
Okay. But Max basically, says he's two-faced because they get called into the stewards after George complains about the impeding, which he's allowed to complain about it. They're allowed to say, and Max is gone, and they go and figure out if somebody's going to get a grid place penalty or what have you. But what Max reveals is that it wasn't a typical meeting of like, this is my case, this is your case. Let's see what happens. Let's leave it up to them. Sounds like it was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And just, he went at him. And I don't know if he went at him, but he pleaded the case so much that Max is like, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, kind of like when your little brother just complains and complains and complains. Your mom's just like, you know what? You're wrong. Go do whatever punishment because of whatever. Because I'm sick and tired of
I'm
listening
just
to your little
hearing
brother.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was do you have the quote there? I don't know if I
Of
have
Max, yes. The Max quote was, I have a lot of respect for a lot of drivers, but after last night, I completely lost all respect for him, meaning Russell. I just thought it was ridiculous how he tried to force a penalty on me at the stewards.
it. Yeah.
So it looks like their friendship, they won't be playing paddleboard or
No.
whatever the hell it's called anytime soon.
No. I mean,
And that's where after that, he told George, or around that time, don't worry, I'll get that place back tomorrow.
yeah. And apparently that, first we heard it was like, we just heard that statement was made. And then
It sounded all playful.
Yeah. After the race, we heard from Ted Kravitz that it wasn't in a playful, it was kind of like in your face.
F you.
Yeah. Don't
I'm
worry
coming,
about it.
I'm coming, don't stop me.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be out.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Like,
Which there's also a quote from Toto today, and it just kind of reminded, like when I saw this quote from Toto, it just really kind of like it's the culture that is being perpetuated in Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked him today about the penalties to like Mercedes and the penalties in general, and he said, I think the penalties were pretty brutal, particularly in McLaren, whatever. He doesn't know what the infringement was, but all they're asking for is some consistency. If the race director is going to be a hard stance guy or not a hard stance guy, just make sure that is consistent through every race. Mm-hmm. So he's talking specifically about Lewis's drive-through penalty, McLaren's penalty. However, he doesn't make any complaints about George's ridiculous penalty toward Max.
No.
Like it's that same kind of thing where everything, if it works in my favor, sure, I think it's I'm going to take a very middle of the road, I'm here for everybody, but as soon as it's my penalty, like fuck everybody else.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, or it's not ridiculous, like whatever their stance is going to be.
Well, and to your point of, is this Mercedes culture? It might be, because that kind of goes back to change your fucking car. Because, Mercedes went through these years of winning championship after championship. The minute they start losing, everybody's cheating. Everybody else is cheating. Something's wrong with Red Bull. And Christian's like, or we just figured it out. Like, we got
lucky.
We figured it out. Because Newey was with them through the years that they didn't win. So Newey just started to figure it out. And it is that, And we kind of see it with Lewis. And I hate to say it, but we have seen it a lot with Lewis. Is the car doesn't work, the car's not performing, I don't want to race. Car's not working.
Yeah.
And it's like and he never really says the team, but he kind of says things. And he said something today, something like, is the car broken or what?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, you don't have to say it like that. Like, you just...
But he's the first person to thank everybody back at the factory, but then telling him they're working shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And he's retiring, and no matter what anybody says, I'm just going to retire the car. So there might be,
I think it is. I think
company
it's something
culture.
I think it is. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Kimi Antonelli. But either way, I mean, George was on another level. We've heard ridiculous radios from George, which are funny usually. But this weekend they've just been, it's just been a little bit extra.
They're an aggressive George. Are they aggressive for the sport? No. Are they aggressive for what we've seen of George? Yes. And I said to you, my theory on it is that Liberty Media is saying, listen, even Sweetie Pie George is capable of swearing.
Yeah. I mean, they're putting out every F-bomb that they can find. It was Ocon, it was Albon, it was Stroll, it was Lawson, it was everybody. They're at this point, they're daring the FIA to give everybody
to do something.
fines.
Yeah. They're like, find them. Find them all.
Yeah. And specific to George, this weekend, it felt a lot like a soccer player taking a dive.
It did.
Like, hey, I'm down. Maybe I got touched. Maybe I didn't. But look at this over here.
It definitely felt like that. And hopefully... And I mean, listen, it's the end of the season. Everybody's tired. Everybody's cranky. Everybody's not where they wanted to be.
Well, they're not 4-year-olds. So everybody's tired. Everybody's cranky. Everybody's ready to go home. They need to put on their pajamas and get to bed. He hasn't had his milk yet.
Yeah. It's time. It's time. But I mean, I hope Abu Dhabi is what it should be and not...
Well, we should have a good fight. We're gonna get that McLaren Ferrari fight right to the end. So we're gonna have still a fight to the end.
Yeah. We're unsure if Lewis is showing up.
Well, that's our theory. We already know that.
Jensen said it.
It's likely. I thought that right at the beginning. I thought as soon as he said retire, I'm like, he's gonna bow out before the last race.
Yeah.
I had a feeling they might put in Antonelli. They just haven't said it yet. Especially because they just don't want to hear Lewis do it anymore, especially if he's going to put out a poor showing. Although they do have a special livery with fans signed the car apparently for his last race at Mercedes. So that makes me think that they won't just be so bitter to be like, no, we're not going to do it. You can take that livery home with you.
Right.
I still think he's still going to race because it's his last race with Mercedes.
Yeah.
Had this been like Vegas, he said this, and then he had this race, maybe they would put in Antonelli for this race, although he did race in F2 today. But we do know that Esteban's not going to, likely.
I don't know if it's been
set to be replaced, by Jack Doohan for the last race. Basically giving Ocon an early release so he can test for Haas at the end of this year.
Yeah. Sayonara.
That's news, yeah.
I mean, it is.
Or you say goodbye? Oh.
I'm saying goodbye to Esteban. I mean, although we're going to see him next year. But
I mean, when it first came out, I kind of, like, the first time this year that I actually felt bad for Esteban.
Yeah, so did I. I was like,
I thought, like, okay, just let him finish it out.
Yeah.
I mean, he did have some big moments for you. You've had a big moment this weekend. Gasly got a good race result. Alpine's driver won the F1 Academy. So actually, before we just glaze over that, Abby Pulling for Alpine has won the F1 Academy. I always mess up that name.
Yeah.
F1 Academy Drivers Championship.
Yes.
So congratulations to her and Alpine.
Which she won. I don't know if you saw this stat. She was on a podium for every single race that they had. Whether she won or not, she was on a podium for every single one.
She's been the Max Verstappen of F1 Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has been absolutely lights out this year.
Yeah. Honestly. It's just bizarre timing, but maybe there's nothing behind it. Maybe it really is just...
I hope so.
So you can do some... training there. I mean, we'll get to see Doohan in a race. So we've seen him drive
Practice.
like FP1, I think, FP2.
Yeah, usually FP1s. Yeah, I think he did 2 or 3.
Yeah.
2, I think.
So we'll see him in a race. We'll see what he has in the F1 car in the race scenario.
Yeah.
And then I guess we'll see him next year. Or maybe is this Alpine seeing
He's giving his test drive just in case they want to sign Colapinto.
in
We can
case
throw out
they
more
want that?
tinfoil
Yeah.
shit.
I'm telling you. I'm getting the tinfoil hat made. And we're doing it. But yeah, I don't think so. But I hope with Ocon it's not a bitter goodbye, and I hope for Lewis it's not going to be a bitter goodbye as well.
I don't think so.
I hope
I
not.
don't think either of those will come as we're taking it.
Yeah. Drama.
Yeah, it'll be good for Netflix to Drive to Survive.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, that's basically it for
That's it.
news.
We're
That's
done.
that's it. That's all we've got for you in an hour and a half.
That's it.
So before we get going, before we
Fresh
sign
stuff.
off today, before our ultimate race, not the penultimate, I don't know why I said ultimate, the final race. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's late. Our fresh set of this weekend.
Mine is Jensen Button being
Good
a
one.
commentator on with Crofty, not after the race, post race interviews, whatever. I liked his commentary. I think he is more recent driver, and he's been in these types of cars. So I think his input is actually really, really good, where we have Crofty and Brundle who haven't driven. I think I talked about this last weekend. Haven't driven these types of cars. So I found a lot. Crofty was kind of saying, you've driven here. You've driven this car. You've driven with Max. You've driven, so he brought that input. So maybe we move him to being there when Brundle's not there or when Crofty's not there.
Yeah.
I thought he did a good job.
All right. Mine's gonna be a two-parter. One, just quickly, Max's first race win, his 9th of the season, his first race win since when was the last time he got? Anyways, since before the break.
Didn't he win somewhere else? No, he just won in Brazil,
No.
Mexico.
Sprint. No, he didn't win Mexico.
He won somewhere.
This is
Didn't
his
we hear
first
the
race.
anthem?
No, this is his first race win, GP win. I can't remember. It's been like 9 races or something like that. They said it today. No, it might have been a sprint.
Whatever.
Either way, it's the first time we've really heard the Dutch anthem in a long, long time. But that was just a quick one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to Gasly and Abby pulling from Alpine.
Fair enough.
A great showing. Good points. Put them into 6th. Was it? A $13 million jump at this point. So hopefully they can hold on to that for next year. At the end of the year.
Next week.
Next week. So it was really good, consistent, quick for them.
Fair enough. It was a good weekend for Alpine.
Yeah.
In the organization of Alpine.
Yeah.
Dirty Air. I'm actually going to say, and it's not really fair.
What how many things can we talk about?
Yeah. Okay. Liberty Media and using a lot of George's radios this weekend. I didn't like that because I felt like it, although we're frustrated with George, I felt like it was a dig. It felt very malicious and like they were using his on purpose to show him as this villain. Conspiracy theory. Foil hat. Ben's comments, didn't like that. I'm just going through a list of fresh air.
Okay. Just gonna go through everything,
Dirty
so I
Air.
have nothing left to talk about.
And then just in general, McLaren. Didn't love McLaren this weekend. Just
No.
I mean, I felt bad for Lando today, but I still feel like they can't get right. Just get right. I feel like they just can't get right.
McLaren.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
okay.
my list.
All right.
Dirty Air.
I am going to go with, and I'm going to stick with the Mercedes theme. I'm going to go with Lewis this weekend. I mean, we saw it last year where he was finishing. He was in 20th. I can't remember what race that was, but he was 20th, and he just didn't want to even complete like one lap.
Yeah.
But it's not something, and I mean, Lewis is like Gretzky or Jordan.
Yeah.
They've achieved everything you can achieve, almost everything you can achieve in this sport. But it's not the look you want from a legend.
No.
Which he is.
He is.
Right? He is supposed to be the ultimate competitor.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the guy who never gives up. The guy who pulls out that race win like he did in Brazil in 2021 from 16th or whatever position it was. You don't want to see your legend fail, but in such a dishonorable manner. It was just like I really felt like he was just not of character this weekend.
No.
And just like himself, like he's been talking about it for a couple of weeks where, if this is my last race or, whatever, it just seems like he's resigned himself to just being done with Mercedes, and he's just given up on the last. And I know he's got nothing to fight for technically, but it's just, you never want to see the fight in somebody so great just peter out because they're just not caring anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like he doesn't have the talent for it. He's just not caring, especially saying that, is my car broken, when his closest rival, which is his teammate, is putting it on pole, or he's
winning,
winning or whatever. It was very disappointing to watch Lewis this weekend.
And he had a post sprint, I don't know if it was quali or the race, interview. And I don't know who he was talking, but he was just in the pen, and they said something, and he says, I'm just not fast anymore. And who was interviewing him said, no, like, that's not true. Like, you're still fast.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm just not fast anymore. And she was trying to like build him up, and he was just like, no, I'm not fast
and
anymore.
if you're Ferrari, is this what you want to watch? Like,
Nope.
Is this what you want to watch for your driver coming in? Just talking about how he's just not into
He's not
it.
fast.
Like, if you don't have a good weekend, or you don't have a car that's on the top this weekend or whatever in a couple races, that you're just going to give up.
And we know Ferrari can fail with strategy, so good luck, Lewis.
We'll see. But yeah, it was just, to me, it was just very disappointing this weekend to watch that. It was like the downer. Like, when you're having a great time at a party and you've got that one friend that's just bringing you down, you're just going to try to avoid them the rest of that party, and you're just like, I'm just going to walk away. But they keep following you. Yeah. Like, they keep wanting to tell you their problems. And that's what it felt like. And I'm just like, oh, just stop. Just stop. Can we leave? Don't retire. Like, just stop showing them.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah. All right. Well, that's us for, a quick episode.
So. We said we were going to do it quick, and we do this all the time. And it's probably the longest we've done.
Probably. It was a good episode, though.
It was, yeah.
And we're still recording. It was
a good weekend,
Yeah, we're still recording. But
let's wrap it up. Right?
Yeah. So you can find us on everywhere. At Fresh Set Podcast, wherever you find your podcast. I don't have to list it out. You guys know where you find your podcast.
Even making the sign off quick.
Yeah. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, and X, which is formerly Twitter, at Fresh Set Podcast. And you can like, follow, subscribe, share, comment, rate.
Thumbs up, rate.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Ask us a question.
Ask questions. We're getting to the end of the season, so ask us some questions. And we will be back next week. It is the finale of the 2024 season. But
not our finale. We will still continue with stuff.
Yeah. We will. We will. Okay.
We haven't even discussed that.
No. All right. We will see you guys next week.
Okay, grab a fresh set. Bye.